Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Perspective on this beautiful day. Today, we will be looking at something very important. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo, and of course, the global energy market is undergoing some significant shift, which is driven by rising energy consumption and emissions in 2024 coming down to 2025 also. And of course, the global energy consumption accelerated faster in its historical pace, with what we call the non-OECD countries like China, India, Indonesia leading the growth. But then fossil fuel still dominate the energy mix, according to about 86 of global energy consumption. However, remarkable energy sources, renewable energy sources, are getting some form of traction, and it's worth talking about. But then today we will be looking at something very important, and there is so much going on. And of course, at the international level, we will be doing some consideration and some analysis, as I will have an energy consultant speak to us on Diplomatic Perspective today. Well, let's go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return, and I will have Dr. Wisdom Enang join me on the conversation as we look at some trending issues from the energy market. Stay with us. We'll return for Diplomatic Perspective after this break. Welcome back from that break. We have Dr. Wisdom Enang, an energy consultant and an analyst, joining us on Diplomatic Perspective today. It's good to have you join us on the program, Doctor.
Thank you very much, sir. Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure.
All right, we're looking at something very significant today. You know, when you talk about the energy market, a lot of people don't really get what it really feels like when it has to do with international trade. And Nigeria is a key player in this market. Now, can you give us a little background of what, when we talk about energy market, what we are referring to?
Right, the energy market, I mean, simply refers to, the trade of the commodity itself, and of course the pricing mechanisms, which are largely determined at the international level, meaning that it's a number of demand and supply forces. Demand in the sense that it's looked at the various industrial sectors of different countries and different continents that demand vessels, how much production we can actually get. Then it also looks at the current political situation, whether or not there are sanctions. So those are the things that determine the price, and even the seasons, because of course you would need a lot more energy if you're looking at the winter period. investors if you're looking at the summer periods for the European and the American continent. So the international market is just simply an interplay of demand and supply, which determines the price at any given point, and those are underpinned by the various contracts that control the demand and supply forces. So that's basically what it means when we talk about something being traded on the international level. It simply means, in the layman word, that that commodity, the price point, is being determined by factors that are well beyond one country's control.
So it's obvious that it is a very competitive market. How is Nigeria being able to match up with the competition?
All right, yeah, absolutely. It's a very competitive market, and there are a number of you know peculiarities where you look at each of the each of the participants. Right in Nigeria, for example, we try to have what we call strategic partners, and those are partners that offtake our crude. It could be, for example, India is a strategic partner when it comes to crude sales. And on LNG, we have the European folks that take over LNG and we export it to those countries. So we try to get more of our sales done by way of long-term sales agreements, and those are given to strategic partners. Now, there's still the spot market, right? And there's still your ability to sell within the spot market. But I think Nigeria, for the most part, deals on strategic partners and trying to make sure that by way of moderating supply quantity or by way of giving very competitive contracts that they can retain for the long term the the partners that they do have, and it works for the most part. So I mean, that's the way Nigeria has been able to put up a very formidable contractual approach towards making sure that we retain our partners and we continue to thrive, at least in the sub-Saharan sector of the market, and generally in the global space as well.
Let's get to talk about something very important, and that's the fact that Nigeria has been in this play for a very long time. I talk about one of the area that a lot of people even concentrate on in Nigeria, as it has to do with a source of income in the past, even until now, is the energy sector. Let's talk about all the things that can actually make Nigeria relevant. And how can Nigeria sustain its ground in the market so far? Because if you want to talk about what is happening in Nigeria as it has to do with the energy sector, what's your assessment? What can you say about the energy sector in Nigeria so far? Because if the competition is huge, then there are so many things that need to be done back home to make Nigeria at least relevant when it comes to the energy market, especially because of new entrants, like Canada, for instance.
Yeah, I think, yeah, spot on there. What we need to do is to try to first get more competitive terms, because if you look at the energy, the whole timeline in terms of energy, right about the last 10 years, Nigeria started losing investments to New Horizons. And those New Horizons are places like Papua New Guinea and Guyana. Those are the New Horizons that people are going to. In fact, including going for gas prospect in Mozambique. So, without a doubt, the whole context is really important to be competitive. And this came at a point where there was a delay in the passage of the PIA, so a lot of investors were a bit jittery about scaling up investments in Nigeria, and so they decided that it was okay, um, to keep things as status quo.
Well, I think my guest is trying to establish a point right there. Doctor, can you hear me?
Whilst using that money to expand new frontiers. And so what can we do now? We need, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. It's better now. It's back.
Okay. So I said, having lost, a lot of investors' interests, sequel to the passage of the petroleum industry bill that took 20 years to pass. And those investors' interests have gone to new frontiers like Papua New Guinea and Guyana. Now we need to play, a second person's second movers. That's what we're playing. And with the second mover, it simply means that you need to have the first mover and then things a lot better. So, what are the other nations giving to the companies that are going there, and how can we do it even much better? And to be fair, I think Nigeria is realizing that because we are seeing conversations around Petrocam, I think Petrobras, sorry, coming back, the Brazil uh, company, the Brazil National Oil Company, coming back to Nigeria. So I think that's giving a bit of confidence that there is something that the government has realized that needs to be done in order for us to be able to, progress. The other thing that we need to do is we need to actually start creating indigenous funding options for our energy projects. Let's not kid ourselves. We now have the onset of the AI, artificial intelligence, and all of these opportunities are competing for the same funds, funding from the same set of investors. So I think it is very important for us to clearly understand that for us to attract funding, we need to first be able to conceptualize our idea and create a proof of concept, and we need money for that. And so I think we need to really, really get more funding options in addition to what we're having from the uh, African Energy Bank that will be domiciled in Abuja. And then the other thing is that we need to start contextualizing the opportunities on offer. Yes, it's enough for us to say, yes, Nigeria has 39 billion barrels of crude in proven reserve. But how many of that have we done exploration and contextualized what the acreage and all of that looks like, and so people can really understand the opportunities within each of the acreage, and then we can beat them out for licensing round. That's very important, and that means we need funds to keep doing active exploration on those assets. So these are things that we can do to further increase our capacity as a nation, and ultimately be able to to be able to contextualize the investment opportunities that abound in Nigeria and get investors to come in and say, okay, look, we're coming back to Nigeria, and because we now see more prospects that we can expand into. I think those are the key areas that I think we as a country, we need to be looking at.
Talked about the return of Bertrand just now. We have others, and of course, Ungran. What impact? Because you get to some of these places where some of these companies are located. You hear a lot of people complaining about some of their activities. Do you think that affects the level of energy production and development in the country, the activities of these energy companies in Nigeria, and or maybe government policy inclusive?
All right. I mean, for me, when you say activities, are you referring to activities in the sense of the production activities or activities that affect the environment? Hello?
Yes, I mean both. I mean both activities.
Okay, so production activities, if the scale in terms of the production it will be better for the country. Already, our production is going towards 1.8 million barrels per day, which is very good. So we need more production to be able to give us money for for running our economy and all of that. I think that's the key thing. The second issue that we ought to be doing is when you think about the environmental degradation is, to my mind, a function of the fact that there might be some lapses from a regulatory standpoint. Because if the regulators are doing exactly what needs to be done, we may not have that. So that's a wake up call if that's a concern for regulators to deepen their activities. But other than that, we have these countries, operate.
Well, I think we're having a little bit of a break right there in the conversation, but then I think he's trying to give us a breakdown of the impact.
So we have these companies operating in very ethical ways. So
Go ahead.
no, I'm done. I said if there's a good regulatory oversight, the environmental aspect shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Now, one thing is very important, and it is the sustainability, all right, of what we're talking about. Sustainable energy development is very important because so many times in Nigeria you hear, okay, now we are doing good at the international market. Oh, our energy is doing good. Sometimes you hear there is no sustainability. Sometimes you hear of policies affecting the level of sustainability and all of that. Now, as it is, what policies can Nigeria implement to ensure sustainable energy development and reduce its reliance on maybe fossil fuels?
So sustainable energy development simply is going to be looking at getting out of the rent-seeking concepts. Yes, because essentially what you want to do is to not only tap from the 15% of the economy, which is gotten when you just take oil, put it at the minimum spec required, and then export it. What you really want is to industrialize your economy. Industrialization is the key component of sustainable development. Because if you do not consume energy, you cannot industrialize. Industrialization simply means you have taken that energy and you have now used it as a fuel to power your economy. That industries spring up, manufacturing sector, for example, if you have the power and you're able to get them the feedstock that they need, and then you go beyond that, and then you look at even beyond the secondary industries, secondary linkages, you begin to establish tertiary linkages. Those are all hallmarks of civilization, which is the main component of sustainable development. So I think we should not just look at exporting, but we need to industrialize. But industrialization is a very tricky thing. I'll give you a bit of context. India, with no known proven reserve at all of gas, not significant, it has about 70,000 kilometers of pipeline. But Nigeria, for example, has about has let's say 209 billion cubic feet of gas, but we have barely about 8,000 kilometers of functional pipeline. But you can also see that India is a very industrialized nation, and so it continues to be a challenge if you look at the fact that without the pipeline stretch, we cannot industrialize. So I think infrastructure becomes a big problem on the wheel in the spanner in the wheel of our progress. And I think we need to look at how we can scale the infrastructure. More so, I think we need to start looking at sort of designing solutions to fit with our terrains. For example, we have challenge with infrastructure. We do not have that much, and there's money that's required for infrastructure is very scarce right now. So we can be looking at CNG solutions that are more like containerized, and then helps you to use what we call virtual pipelines on those trucks and be able to supply gas to where it is required. But we need a lot of more stimulation of growth. We need the government to put in funding to make sure that people are encouraged to come out, boost consumption, and then ultimately that consumption then encourages supply. I think those are the key things that we need to do. But it's all centered around industrialization and deepening the consumption of energy.
Let's get back to the area of diplomacy now, because most of these things has one or two things to do with diplomacy. As a matter of fact, what role can energy diplomacy play in promoting Nigeria's energy? Interestingly, globally, and how can it foster cooperation with other countries? I'm asking this question because, anything that has to do with Nigeria, there is a way that it's been looked at the international level. Most things, I wouldn't say everything, maybe because of one issue or the other, or where Nigeria is being perceived. Does this have any role to play in affecting transactions in the market?
I mean, definitely, without a doubt, the stock market is a very sentimental market. So I'll give you context. Even tweeting about maybe a company CEO just making a joke about something is being regarded as a policy statement. I mean, that's how it works anyway. So everything that anyone in authority says is more like a policy statement. So that being said, there are things Nigeria can do. Continue to show that yes, the best time we could have done this is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today, and we're taking that charge. And we're ready to go, and we're ready to be adaptive. We're ready to be innovative, cognizant of the fact that we live in such a fast-paced, changing world, and so we need to play catch-up. That's basically it. So give confidence to investors, but also take into cognizance the fact that right now, before it used to be the tripod of energy, right? But now it's or what we call the energy trilemma. But now it is a quadrilemma. Before it used to be affordability, accessibility, and availability of energy. Now there's the fourth component, which is the the acceptability of energy. Is it clean? Is it ethical? Is it sustainable fair to the environment? Does it take into importance limiting your carbon footprint? So those are things, and not only do we need to be doing it, we need to tell our story of how Nigeria is able to steward its ESG goals, its environmental sustainability goals. So those are very key areas, and when we do that, we're equally as competitive as the rest of the world. But another thing we need to do, we need to start taking ownership for technology. A lot of the technology that we used are not domiciled and domiciled in Nigeria. I'll give you context. You go to an IOC, you look at the technology they deploy. A lot of it is gotten from their internet, from their headquarters, for example, and so somewhere in their headquarters, someone is looking at researching for different countries and bringing out solutions, and there's no knowledge transfer. Without that, we are at the mercy of the international community. God forbid a sanction, God forbid any other thing. We cannot be able to continue to hone in on the growth we need. So we need to take ownership of this technology, at least the more recent advances that are coming out in oil and gas technologies, so that we can make sure that all the factors that should support our growth are within our hands.
I don't know. I wanted to ask, but our time is fast spent. But in just a minute or two, have we had success stories as far as the energy sector is concerned? Hello, doctor. Can you hear me? All
Can you
right.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
Can
now.
you
I
hear
was asking if uh, we've had success stories in the past, because for every of these things that we're talking about, as far as the energy market or energy sector is concerned, there are challenges and opportunities. But then, in just a minute or two, as our time is already up, do we have a success story that we can hold to any time, any day?
Yes, yes, we do. We do. At some point in 2023, I think about April, our production was under just about a million barrels per day. Today, we're talking about 1.7, 1.8 million barrels per day. A lot of, that's the success. And, that success was gotten from the presidential directive on oil and gas reforms that brought better fiscal terms, and also the cancellation of most of those crude swap contracts, and also solving the crude theft issues. So we've risen to the occasion. We just need to sustain and build and scale better on what we've been doing. We've got a lot more gas investments at the moment. In our energy sector right now, Nigeria is a net exporter, as opposed to when we were entirely dependent on importing 90% of our consumption for PMS. So I think we are better off. And now, right now, we have gone from a point where we had a very erratic price change in PMS to now very stable and even gradually declining prices based on the macro economic factors. So I think we're doing very well. We just need to scale and then keep on doing what we're doing, and then move on to industrialize and, of course, expand the economy, diversify. We'll do even better.
Okay, that's good. I think that if that's the case, then we should be saying congratulations to ourselves and expect something bigger and something great and more successes in time to come. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, Doctor, for joining us.
Thank you. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
And you too. Thanks so much. All right, this is going to be the size of diplomatic perspective. Some persons may not know, when you talk about the energy sector, it is a place that all eyes are on and attention is there. But then, what about the diplomatic aspect of it? What is it bringing in? How is it putting Nigeria on the global map? Well, this is what's talking about, and that's the reason we need to talk about this on diplomatic perspective today. The president and other persons have been traveling to investors and so many other things. But then the bottom line is that all of this is to build up the economy of the nation. Many thanks once again for staying with us on Diplomatic Perspective. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Thanks and bye-bye for now.